pretty decent audio. I think we're going to be okay, but it seems like we're losing stuff right now. I see it. Yeah, that sucks.
Well, that's because I just turned on the recording.
Oh,
I like to do it when I don't tell you. See what comes out.
I love that.
Hey,
I was like,
welcome
no,
aboard.
It's happening again.
Welcome to Over 50, starting over with Merle Garrison, Barry Edwards. I am Barry. You're Merle.
I'm Merle Garrison, yes.
Yeah, you are. Merle, I wanted to pick up with something. One of our listeners reminded me that last time I cut you off, and I'm usually pretty good at circling back. But I cut you off. We were talking about anxiety. You said the definition was self-condemnation. I butted it and I said, well, I know a clinical definition is fear of the past and the future, not being in the present.
Mm-hmm.
But
and I agree with that.
Yeah, we talked all about that, but we didn't talk at all about self-condemnation, and I find that fascinating. So I wanted you to, follow up on that.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, Barry. Yeah. Really, this comes directly from my faith as a Christian, and I've had my own struggles with anxiety before.
We both have.
Yeah, so it's and it's more common than ever before now. I think probably about 4 out of 5 people have experienced this or are experiencing it right now.
I think social media has a lot to do with it.
Oh, same here. And, especially right now, there's so much stuff that's going on. It's a dark time. Yes. And I said condemnation the other day. Another word you could use is disqualification.
Okay.
A great example would be
you said
doing the show.
Self-condemnation.
And self-disqualification. Okay. Same thing. And so here's what I'm talking about. On a surface level, I wanted to do this podcast with you. But on the inside of me, I was saying, I can't do this. I don't have time to do this. I'm not talented enough to do this. Nobody's going to watch. Nobody cares about what I think, blah, blah, blah. I'm disqualifying myself.
Yes.
And so, but then I decide, well, I'm going to move forward with this anyhow. So all these disqualification fears start to happen to me where I get in front of a camera and I got a zit on my face. I've got this going on or that going on. And pretty soon I get myself so worked up that these are the kinds of things that spur fear, which rolls into full-on anxiety. Now, from a spiritual level, as a Christian, the way that I see it is this way. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so, this is where religion gets people all screwed up, is that they feel like they're not good enough for God. And therefore, they don't go to God. And it has everything to do with sin. Sin is the big disqualifier. And so, but we all have this. Nobody is immune to this. In fact, according to the Bible, because of Adam and the original sin, we're all born with this inside of us where we feel this I'm not worthy kind of thing. And so the not worthy thing it's like a seed that germinates and grows into this terrible, full-on anxiety at times. You had a comment.
Question. I thought it was Eve. I thought she was the one that bit the damn apple.
She did.
Can't tell a woman anything,
Well, here's the interesting thing about that whole thing. You're right. Eve bit the apple first. And by the way, it's interesting. In the Bible, it says it's a piece of fruit. It never says that it's an apple.
Really?
Just a side note there. Yeah, I think that's interesting too.
That is interesting.
So she bit into it because, according to the Bible, Satan had deceived her. Right. And if you look at the account, she's actually misquoting what God said to Adam. Now, if you really look into this, God told Adam not to eat from the tree of knowledge and of good and evil. And he didn't tell that to Eve. So Adam must have told something to Eve that was not right. And through that, Eve was deceived by Satan. Now, if you read the account very closely, Adam was standing right there when Eve was being deceived. And Adam knew full well what God had said to him. So when Adam bit the apple,
he probably wasn't listening. He's a guy. Half, was thinking about the football game or something.
You know what? Probably. You know how we are. But here's another thing, though, is that when Adam bit the apple, he was not deceived. He rebelled because he knew full well what he was doing. And so when Adam bit the apple, it was pretty much too late. God actually gave Adam and Eve another chance. And when he came down looking for Adam and Eve after they had bitten the apple or whatever the piece of fruit was, they were hiding from God. And God asked them, Adam specifically, what did you do? Now, this was Adam's chance to confess, and I believe everything would have been all right had Adam fessed up to what he had done. He said, it was that woman you gave me.
That's where it all started.
And now look where we are. Come on.
Exactly. Hey, how does that get back to the self-condemnation and self-indignation? Is it?
Self-condemnation and self-disqualification. And this is what I'm talking about, is that now everything changed for me when I heard this particular scripture that says, he who knew no sin became sin so that I personally could become the righteousness of God in him. Now that is a mouthful. And this is good church, people say this in church and everyone says, amen, but few people know what it means. And this is the beautiful part. It means that Jesus Christ went to the cross and suffered all of the penalty for my sin, past, present, and future, so that he took on my sin so that I could take on his righteousness. Now, righteousness is something I didn't know what it was. I thought it meant doing good things or acting in a particular way, but that's not what it is. It is a quality of Jesus Christ. His righteousness, and what it means is that he is fully accepted by the Father. There is no blemish, no error. He is perfect and fully accepted by the Father. And so he has perfect access to the Father. Once I have his righteousness, which is a gift, a free gift to me, now I have that same thing. But when God looks at me, he sees perfection, no matter how I'm currently acting. A lot of people will say, well, that just gives you license to sin? No, that's not true. It's just like my Father. If he had given me all of these things out of the goodness of his heart, how could I turn and stab him in the back with that? And so that's all the whole foundation of grace. Here's what it did for me. It released me. I was able to live my life without this burden, this oppression over me that I was being judged.
Mm-hmm. You felt the unconditional love, and it relieved your anxiety.
And
unconditional love is the polar opposite of anxiety.
There it is.
And they cannot coexist at the same time.
You're spot on. So this is something that happened as a result in my own life. When I was a kid, I got into all this trouble and I was hiding all this stuff from my father.
We both
and then
did.
He found out about it. And then he showed me that he loved me. It seemed like he loved me even more. And so then I could just be myself around my dad. He knew all the things that I had done.
The secrets were out.
Yeah, and I could just be at ease with him, and I could just hang out with him. I could ask dumb questions. I could be myself. Yeah. And really, this is when you realize that you can just be yourself with God and just enjoy life. You're free. And that whole condemnation, the self-disqualification thing that I was talking about, that all goes away. And as soon as I got that into not my head, but into my heart, and I talked about it last time, is these are things you have to hear and hear and hear and hear. It's because it'll go away.
It'll slip away without you even realizing it, slowly erode. Yeah.
It's like eating food, right? You get hungry every day. You've got to eat this, and then or vitamins, and you're going to be mentally healthy and happy as a result of these things.
Right. I struggle with all of that. Phew. All of that.
Well, this is a snare that so many people have gotten into, and if you're in it yourself, it's like you feel like you're an island. You're the only one
Mm.
there.
Yeah.
It's a miserable existence. It's basically hell on earth. But when you realize that God has an answer, I heard a scripture where it says, one of the Psalms says that He pulled me out of the pit and put a new song in my mouth. I tell you,
Mhm.
that's what He did for me. And I just want other people to be able to escape that terrible trap. It's a snare, and really can drag you down and ruin your life. But there's good news, and there's a way out.
That's cool. And I don't have the perfect segue here. And I'm
I
trying
do.
to, well, I want to get to this next topic.
Okay. All
And
right. You go.
it's the, we pretty much lead with in our veteran podcast here. It's our third podcast. But we try to lead with some over 50 starting over kind of conversation. And so that has to do with entrepreneurship. It has to do with sales. It has to do with marketing. It has to do with getting into the business of your passion, and whatever that may be. And there's so many different facets of that. And this week I wanted to talk about, it may sound simple at first, but it's an incredibly deep and complex concept, and that is leadership.
Mm,
And I wanted frame it from my perspective first, because it's different from yours. And from my perspective, I did start out my career with a small agency, which I worked my way up to creative director, where I was the boss of about
right.
6, 7 people. And oh my God, the reason I couldn't wait to go out on my own was because of the disciplinarian aspect. I felt like a babysitter for a large part, and all of the paperwork. So I figured if I was going to have to do a lot of things I
I
didn't
hate
want to do,
paperwork.
I may as well
Right.
be on my own, you know?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so anyways, so I did go on my own. But during all this time, so even when I was with that agency and all my adult life, I've worked with so many different companies, no matter if they're a 2, 3 man show or a Fortune 500 national company, international company. I swear to God, I've noticed this early on, and that is a company's personality, demeanor, entire energy will be dictated by that one person at the top.
Mm,
So if
hmm.
you have an
I agree.
asshole at the top that rules through fear, then everybody does it. And that's to throw the people on everybody under the bus that goes all the way through the company. And
Yes.
and you could even have somebody that's like, okay, I struggled with in my young, I was in my 20s when I was the creative director.
Right.
And so there's a lot of young ego there that I couldn't see clearly through. And what I'm trying to say
Right.
is, so I struggled with the balance of being a friend versus being a boss. And
Hmm.
now I don't really know what the perfect balance is, but back to, I could see with different companies, even the people in the middle, it will allow for different styles of leadership permeating through the
Yeah.
company. But
Yeah.
then when you got a really good leader at the top that really does inspire, is a good word, really
Yes.
inspires you, you really respect them. You probably fear them too, a little bit, maybe, but it's through a large amount of respect. That's what you find your best companies, where you find your best culture. They're not, the turnover is not as high. Therefore,
Right.
saves a lot of money for the company. That's my side of it. Your side of it is you've led several large sales teams on
I
district,
have.
national levels. I want
Yes.
to know I'm sure you got a million thoughts right now. So you
Well,
take it away.
thanks, Barry. Yeah, I've led several teams across the country, and it's been one of the joys of my life. And again, everything that I do really revolves around my faith and how I see things through God's eyes. And one of the things that Jesus says is the greatest leaders are the greatest servants. And so he led that. He says that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And so that is the heart of Jesus Christ. So for me, That's the heart of a real leader. And as a leader on various teams that I've had, the first thing that I want to do is find out how the folks that work for me can win. And I don't mean just um, win at work by, for me, it's a sales organization. So exceeding quota is the main goal. Well, that's a great goal. And you're going to make a lot of
Mm.
money doing that. However, I find that's not really what directly motivates people. For
Right.
example,
Motivation being the key word here.
I'm telling you is
Mm.
that, for example, I had a woman working for me. Her name is Kim. You mentioned having a relationship with people and knowing what that fine line of the relationship
Yeah.
is. This is one area that I threw in the trash. I love everyone that works for me, and I find ways that things about them to love. And so, again, if I'm going to be their leader, I'm not going to just tell them to charge. I'm going to
Mm.
show them how to charge. I'm going to lead at the tip of the spear so that they can see how it's done. And then I'm going to allow them to take the ball and run with it, but I'm going to be right there with them the whole way. And we're going to either succeed or fail with our arms locked together. Now, in the case of Kim, she had three kids. She is a single mother, and she had three kids that were in high school, and she didn't know how she was going to be able to get them through college. And she told that to me when we first started speaking. And I told her that my job was to link arms with her and get her three kids' college education paid for. And so that's what we did. We weren't looking at simply making quota. We were looking at a way to cause her to do her parental duty and be the matriarch of her family and be respected and really be the hero of her family. And after about 2.5 years of working together, she was able to amass almost the entire amount for all three kids. She had two of
Wow.
them were already in college, and the other one's still in high school today. And when I left back a couple months ago, she had that almost in the bag. So see,
Wow.
this is when you're a leader like that, that unconditional love, that respect for leadership. I don't
Hmm.
have to tell people to follow me.
Hmm.
People are going to follow me because they understand that I'm in it for them, and it's a win-win situation. In fact, when we go out to a client, if we can't find a way for them to win, because it's got to be a three-way win. I've got to win, the reps got to win, and
Mm.
most of all, the client's got to win.
Yeah.
If we can't do that, we're walking. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is a leader has to be able to show that they're in the trench with them, that they have the knowledge and the experience to succeed, and that they have integrity, so
Mm.
that when problems happen, that we've got an iron ship here. And not only that, another quality of the leader that I found was super important is that a competent leader takes all the responsibility when things go wrong, and he gives all the credit when things go right. He
Mm.
doesn't take any credit for that. And
Mm.
so I have found that when you run an organization like that from the top down, that everyone starts to act like that.
Mm.
People start taking responsibility for
Uh,
themselves. You don't have to micromanage that way, and success is guaranteed.
it's
It's
leading
just
by
there.
example, then, plain and simple.
And again, it's following the example of Christ.
But have you ever had the experience of having to just simply fire someone because
Yes,
they were okay? Because that sounds so difficult when you're
it
so
is.
ingrained
Oh, it's the worst.
with your philosophy that you just laid out.
Well,
Sounds like a horrible place
well,
to funnel down
it's the
to.
hardest part. It is. And here's the thing is that as we talked, I'm very empathetic.
Mm,
And when people are hurt, I'm hurt.
yeah.
And, when it's time to part ways, and, I've had the same experience myself, It's terrible and it's demoralizing. However, there's a way to do it and there's a way not
What's
to do
that?
it.
What's the way
Well,
to do it?
the way to do it is in love. That's all there is to it. Love is the big dictator here. And one thing that I found is the folks that struggled on my team, they weren't happy.
Mm,
This wasn't the job for them. They tried to make it work. They most of them they tried their best, but
mm,
this wasn't where their blessing was.
mm.
Now, here's the deal: is if and we've talked about this before, Barry, where you're if the blessing isn't there, you're why be there? I mean, you're
Correct.
not going to be happy. Your life is going to be miserable. Your family life is going to be
Oh yeah.
miserable. You're probably
Mm,
not going to make the money that you want. And
yeah.
besides all that, who cares how much money you have if you're unhappy? So
Hmm.
really, the way that I looked at this is sort of like a parent that has to help their child with a very hard thing that's going to hurt for now, but it's going to turn out to be one of their biggest blessings in life. And I've let go of a lot of people in my career, more than I
Wow.
care to remember.
Wow.
And but
I
when I
didn't know
speak
that.
to them, I speak to them with my heart. And
Mhm.
a lot of folks have gone on from there to become complete successes.
Nice.
The other thing too is, when you have a person that, has all the potential, but they seem to be choosing to screw it up on purpose.
Mhm.
Those are people that I've had to pull aside and not humiliate in front of everybody else, but
Mm,
have those
right.
one-on-one conversations. One of the guys that used to work with me had a terrible. He made some terrible decisions, but this guy is so smart and competent. But I could see that the decisions that he was making were potentially screwing up his life. So I had to pull him aside and have a deep conversation with him about some of the choices that he was making. And I'll tell you what, Barry, I didn't want to have that conversation,
It'd be a hard
but
conversation, to say the
it's
least.
it
It's
it
getting into
is.
somebody's personal shit, really. You know?
And the only reason you would do this is really love. And I cared about this person greatly and have that conversation. Bottom line is that within the next couple of years, that person became the number one sales rep. As a matter of fact, last year he and I made the biggest sale at the company that I came from, and so it pays to invest your heart into the people that you work with. And I'll tell you another thing too is that when you invest your heart, it's a big risk because your heart's out there and it
Yeah.
could get hurt that way. But I find that it's it the risk is worth it. And I've had my heart broken and I've been betrayed, but those downsides sides are nothing in comparison to the upsides of being able to be a blessing in somebody else's life. And that's really what leadership affords you the ability to do.
I would absolutely love to see, and I know that you are on a intentional hiatus. We talked
Yeah,
about that. For the first time in your life, you've found the opportunity to be free for a while,
right.
having
It's
raised
pretty
your
amazing.
kids and all of
Yeah,
that. Oh, you've been through the ringer. I've seen you through. We've seen each other through all the ups and downs, and
true.
you've earned this highest. But I would really, really love to see you get some contracts. They would have to be at minimum 3 months, probably more like 6 months, to go in and revamp someone's sales staff. To
Yeah, I'm
literally,
open to that.
I would love to see that. I could absolutely totally see it where you go in, uh, you probably are assisting the current district manager or whatever that title may be,
Right.
or you are just heading them up, training them, and identifying who is ready for a bigger leadership role and groom that person to take over where you leave off, where you leave,
Mm.
and move
I
on to
love
the
the
next
idea.
contract.
Yeah,
Oh, it's it's like
it's a great idea.
it's like a venture capitalist. I remember I was at a networking thing fairly recently, and a venture capitalist was being interviewed, young guy too, but he was talking about the entire qualification process that funnels down into a select few companies that then he and his partners get to help thrive. And I thought, how fascinating to be at that high level of seeing very objectively what's going on with these companies and going in and tinkering with them to help them succeed, rather than be in the trenches constantly with one company, which is why I like my job, where I'm always working for different companies.
I like that too. Well, and in sales, that's the great thing, is that you get to interact with all of these different businesses and their business model and their vision, and tying into the best salespeople, obviously, like yourself, tie into their vision and learn as much as they can about that vision. So yeah, I could see myself enjoying something like that tremendously.
Yes.
And again, it's really about the human aspect of it, and helping people to really win in life. And when you help people win in life, you end up winning. It's a really interesting thing. Yeah. So Barry, go ahead.
Okay,
No,
I do.
I wanted to say, I'm going to let you go first.
All right. Well, dude, I'm just backing you up on what you just said, because part of my marketing that I do, I help position services. I help people find the best passion behind their companies. And what I always tell them when I give talks, and I haven't been doing enough of that lately, but when I give talks, I talk about if you're just chasing after the dollar, then you're not living your pure best passionate self. If you're not helping somebody, and you just said that, you've said that repeatedly, is it's got to be a win for the client. And when you actually find a way, when you're helping somebody, and that's really in your heart, that's when your true passion comes out. That's what helps get you out of bed in the morning.
That is.
Yeah, and gives you inspiration to go the extra mile that day.
So Barry, there are people that, we just started doing this podcast a few weeks ago, and this is number 3, but already I'm getting feedback from our handful of fans that are out there, and they're passing the link along and making sure other people are seeing it. But I got some great feedback last night from a person that my brother-in-law knows, and he had a chance to watch our show last week, and we were talking about just being in the corporate world and the attitude that we should have when we find ourselves out of a job, even though we're good at what we do.
Sure.
And there are so many people out there that are dealing with the same thing right now. They feel like, look, when you're in that situation, you're demoralized, and you feel like
self-doubt.
You feel like, remember where we started out with anxiety and that self-condemnation, disqualification. That's what's happening to them. They're going through this, and as they see, and there are a lot of people at our age, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in my 50s, and who's going to hire me, and all these terrible, crazy thoughts. And the fact is that based on the good news is, based on the experience and wisdom that we've able to amass over this time, we've got an amazing advantage right now.
Yes.
We've got so many more options available to us, and all it takes is to, number one, put all those feelings behind you and the emotions, and start opening yourself up for opportunity, and use your ears and your eyes. I mean, Barry, it's funny, as all these things were happening in my last position, out of the blue, you show up in California with Lisa, and we're talking about doing this podcast. And this is a joy for me. I mean, this is a passion for me as well. And I've heard that when you do the thing that you have passion about, eventually the money's going to follow.
Doors open.
Don't follow the money, follow your passion.
And that's really what Over 50 Starting Over is all about. And to your point just a minute ago, a lot of people are getting squeezed out of corporate America at our age these days, for younger talent, even though, we got the experience. But with that, there's always the opportunity. And we touched on it in the last podcast. It's worth saying again, if you're motivated and you open doors, opportunity will be the right opportunity will be behind many of them, but not just one. Do not focus on one,
Right.
explore.
Yeah.
And let opportunity have a chance. I
And
always say the universe is working in your favor, even when, or we could say God is your term, universe is mine, even when it seems like it's not. Even when it's like,
I,
why do you keep beating me up? It's because he's trying to nudge you in the right direction. That's all that
you know,
is.
and again, from the Bible, it says that all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. In other words, even all the bad things. And I
Yeah.
look back at my life and I look at, oh man, all the bad things that have happened in my life
Or the
have turned
best thing.
out
Yeah.
to be the best blessings in my life.
If you
And
can see
I
it, many
well,
of us
and
can't
that's
see that.
what takes discipline. That's what
Yeah.
takes discipline. And we talked a lot during our last podcast about our parents, and they help us in our formative years to be able to have that kind of discipline. So it's so important that parents are disciplining their kids, or helping them to have that discipline.
That's worth
That is
saying
really
again.
huge. Well, it is so true, and I really took that responsibility very seriously with my own children, and making sure that they had that as well. Because first off, I owed it to them, and secondly, is that we want to have kids coming out into the world that can actually cause the world to be a better place, not a worse
Yes.
place.
Right.
So
Right.
you know this is it's an interesting thing, but the bottom line is that people are listening to what we're saying here, and they're
Yeah.
getting the medicine that they need. And here's what I also think is really beautiful, Barry, is that here we are. Okay, we went to college together back in the 90s, but look
80s.
at how
No,
well, yeah,
80s.
you're right.
Late 80s.
Well, I was trying to make us younger, but what year was that?
You're
No,
getting
okay, so it was in
senile,
the
old
80s.
man.
It was in the 80s, darn it. But anyway, there we were, and but look at us. We're so different, and yet so the same. And I think people watching this show can really appreciate it. I mean, here, I'm black, you're white, I'm a conservative, you're a liberal. I'm a Christian. Are you a Buddhist, or do you have
Oh,
Eastern
I'm going to answer
philosophy?
that quickly because it's a deep question. And in the first podcast, I mentioned infinity and how one of these days I want to explain that one, but that's going to take a little while because it's very rooted in my faith. I don't know what you call it. I was going to say agnostic, but agnostic sounds wishy-washy. And my faith is very definite and is very important to me. But when I was going in my 20s, going through hard times and trying to find what ultimately made sense to me, I read a lot of Buddhism, Hinduism too. Uh, I looked around a whole bunch, and I took a lot from everything. In fact, I read the Tao Te Ching over and over for a couple years, and it's
Hmm.
72. You would love it. It's 72 principles to live your life by, 2,000 years old or something, and it's fantastic. So I don't call myself a Buddhist. The Buddhist is the most wide open, accepting, and varying kind of religion. So
Is that right?
yeah. I definitely, it's kind of like my politics. I'm very independent. I cringe
Right.
when you say I'm a liberal, but I am a liberal in the classic sense. But in today's, you almost have to qualify it today. If you say someone's
I
a liberal, I go,
understand.
eek, I got to watch what I say there. I'm so independent in everything that I think and everything that I do. But I'll also say that when I talk about religion, and I want you to understand this more than anything, and I know that you do, but I want anybody to understand it. I don't want to bring doubts into anybody's mind about their religion. I am very accepting of, as long as you're not hurting anybody else and it gets you, makes you a better person, gives you that guidance needed. Everything that you ever say to me and have said a lot on this podcast, biblical, Jesus inspired or whatever, I directly get that message. and I incorporate it in my heart. So it doesn't fall on deaf ears because I have an open mind. But if you called God, if you were of a different religion and called God something else and gave me some other great advice that made me understand anxiety, unconditional love, and so on, I'm going to use that too,
Yeah.
and I'm going to absorb it into my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
that's
and
the shortest answer.
I really appreciate that. And I do believe that within religion, and I don't consider myself religious, but within religion, that there are so many common principles that are, and I believe that the reason for that, and I really believe religion is sort of a man-made thing. I believe that we as human beings we are made by a creator, and it's sort of like he's the one that made the owner's manual, and so we operate and we work in a certain way that's very common to each other. So
Very true.
it makes sense that religions would have a lot of the same types of principles in them because of the way that we are.
And largely just due to the fact that we have different languages, we have different terms for that same God. By the way, I use the term God myself, and in my personal prayers, I pray to God. And I want to make that distinction too. You touched upon it. I just believe that God is a bit more personified in Christian religion to make it easier for people to understand it 2,000 years ago, and so on.
Boy,
But
I tell you
all the
what,
same
Barry, we could do a whole show just on that.
we could do a whole
Obviously,
podcast every
yeah, we
week
really could.
just on that.
We really
Yes,
could.
we could.
Well, I just wanted to say that, and really, you're proving my point here. This is a blessing that you and I can come together and not only have a great conversation, but completely respect where each other are coming from, even if we don't agree with the foundational principles that each one of us have. And in today's world, as they're watching us, this is uncommon, Barry. People don't do this, and I feel like this, that because we're able to do this, we are spreading hope across this country. I mean, the more people that can see that we can actually share ideas, and the fact is that we probably have more in common than we don't have in common. So we should start there all the time.
The problem
we're on the same team, by the way.
Oh, no, we're not. We're divided up into many different teams. As long as you choose a team. That's my thing. That's why I say I'm always an independent. I don't choose a team.
I understand.
I lean one way.
I understand. Well, I mean, we all have our foundational beliefs, but that doesn't mean that we can't listen to other people or find things in common. But here's what I'm saying is that I think by having this show that we sort of set an example for how people should be civil to each other when they have.
Wait until episode 5 when shit really hits.
Yeah,
we're at each other's
exactly. When it's like meet at LAX, buddy.
Now, I'm just going to say, I believe that, this has only really happened for a large part since the advent of the internet, because prior to that, unless it was a telephone, we had to go face to face up against somebody. The internet to me, and when I say that, largely it's social media is what I'm talking about. It's online road rage. So you get in your car, you have that distance, and I'm terrible. Boy, ask Lisa about me driving. I'm like, get the hell out of the way, you dumbass, and stuff like that. And if I got out of the car, like, oh, I know them, shit. That's what the internet is like, where you're on a keyboard. I
agree with that.
You got that complete distance, and our innate instincts are coming out. But I do believe that, as with everything else, we will learn and mature and evolve, and it will.
I hope so.
I think so, and realize that even if it's an avatar, a virtual representation of ourselves, it is still representing us. And
I agree.
I think we've seen our own attitudes about social media grow and evolve in the 10, 11 years since it's been around. And in our case, we've largely distanced ourselves from it because it's so vile. For that, I'm
Well,
not even. I don't do anything on Twitter. I have a Twitter handle, and I post something maybe once a month, and I never even look at it thereafter. So it could be getting 250,000 hate responses. I don't know. That because to me that's a very vile platform.
well, I love your analogy of social media being like road rage, and I'm a pretty level-headed. I mean, in my as I've matured,
Yes,
I'm very, I think
you're
I'm
very
patient, and
grounded, man.
I
You're very
don't.
grounded. You're with your
It's
heart.
very it's very
You know
hard to
you are.
get me to overreact
Yeah,
emotionally.
yeah.
However, even a guy like me can really freak out. And I had a situation, when you're coming up to a red light and there's a left-hand turn lane and you're going straight, but somebody in front of you decides
Oh
you're at a
yeah.
red light and they decide, no, I'm going to go into
Screw
that left-hand
everybody
turn
behind
lane.
them.
Yeah, now I can't go. Well, this
That's
one
bullshit.
particular day, I had it, and I was so mad. And so when the guy did that, I beeped my horn, and he flipped me off. And typically, who cares? I don't care about that. But this
This
time,
day
I
you do.
really cared. And when I finally was able to pull up, sidle up to him, I yelled out the window so loud, and I'm ashamed of what I yelled out, but I yelled so loud that and I was only a couple blocks away from home. So when I got home, I went to tell Anne Marie about this guy. And when I went to speak, I said, I had lost my voice. I yelled so loud at this guy. I'm just saying, this is what social media is like today, is
Yeah,
that
it
we
is.
get into a rage. I say I don't do this, but people just get into a rage emotionally, and then they just blurt out their rage and send it out to the world. And
Yes.
hey, when I yelled at that guy, he didn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Right.
He had some words. See, it's like pouring gasoline on the situation, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
is
But no, I
quite a
do
phenomenon
have a
we're
problem with
seeing
that.
out there.
We have such a self-centered society, which is a big part of our problem. We worship sports heroes and movie stars with not even a college education or whatever, and think that the more adulation that we get, back to social media, the more likes, all this, Instagram does it. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about how many people are looking at me, how you represent yourself as the perfect family or whatever on Facebook. Everybody else is getting anxious because they
Right.
don't feel like they're living up. But all the way down how we drive. You're in LA, for God's sake. So this guy decides he's going to screw everybody behind him because he's in the wrong lane. And now that burns my ass. That's your problem. Go turn wherever you can and turn around, in a law abiding way. Just get the hell out of the way. So totally, I would be just as pissed too. And it's
Well,
because to me, it goes full circle. I see the whole thing. This is what's wrong with our society. We're so self-centered, and everything I just said.
and this is funny. I love the conversation because I have these conversations with my wife too, and it's like, listen, we can't expect people to not act like idiots. I mean, I act like an idiot sometimes. We all do. I mean,
Yeah,
we
true.
we should expect it. I mean, here, I live in Los Angeles. The worst drivers on earth live here.
I
And
don't know.
when I drive
I
down
go
the
to
road,
Florida
well,
every year.
I I tell
Florida's
you what,
crazy.
when I'm driving down the road, I'm tempted to be mad, but then I adopt this attitude that, hey, they're gonna act like this. They're gonna act like little children on the road. I've done it before too. Just
Yeah.
expect it. Stay safe, keep a level head, move out of the way of these people, and get home. And that's really what your goal is, anyhow, is you just want to get home.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, I did not hear from you about the logo that I sent you, the potential logo.
Oh, you know what? My brother-in-law was visiting last week, and it was we had such a great time, but it was pretty much wall-to-wall planning, and I had a hard time keeping up. But you did send me the logo. I can't wait to see it.
Well, you're about to. Do you see my screen?
Boy, now I see a black screen. Is
Oh,
that it? Because I don't want to
Screen
judge.
switch screen or window. It's just a black screen.
Oh wait, now I'm seeing the news. It looks like,
Okay.
hey, that's pretty cool that you were able to do that. Oh, look at that. Oh, Barry, I love
All right.
that. What a
Minor
great
variation.
picture that is.
And so
Oh,
anybody that's watching, this is a screen cap. YouTube
from
does the
last week.
best. Yes. And I
Yeah,
loved it. YouTube
I
obviously
love
uses
that too, by
facial
the way.
recognition software to pick the biggest smiles, right? And
Oh, is that right? I didn't know they did
I,
that.
I
I was
mean,
wondering how they got such great shots every
yeah.
time.
So I love that it captures our energy and stuff. It looks really fun, but it's low res.
It
I can
is.
make it more of an illustration, but this one is from our trip out there, and it was
I'll never forget.
which we specifically took that picture right here for our podcast shot. So
That's right. I forgot we took it for that shot. I love that picture. I sent that to my mom, and she was,
love it
oh,
too.
what a couple of very handsome men.
That's great. All right, now look at this. I made a minor improvement
My
upon
mom,
it.
she had to say that.
Yes, of course. I had our heads break the plane here. It pushes us forward more, if you
I'm
understand.
used to that, breaking planes with my head.
I bet. So you see how it was here. It's a little more static.
I
So
love it.
that's what I'm proposing. And
I I
another
love them
beautiful
both.
thing about it is the circle. I really was going with the circle. Obviously, the circle is a big part of the logo, but it also stands out when all the other podcast things, 99% of them are square. So it has to read very well at a very tiny size, and it should capture it. So I would like feedback, and then I think I'll probably put this on Facebook too. Any other ideas, I'm happy to entertain. But I wanted your feedback, and I am.
Well, I got to say this. Bravo, Barry. I think you captured not only the essence of the show, but really the essence of our friendship in the pictures too. So I love it. I just love it. And I wish the other one was higher res because I just love the smiles because obviously we were laughing at the same time. And this has been the joy of our friendship is the laughter. When I
Oh,
think
yes.
about all the times when we were living together and the laughter that we had,
Yeah.
and it never stopped. It's been over 30 years now, Barry.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's absolutely amazing. And it's all about the laughter and all the stories that we've shared together and so forth. So much fun. I thought instead of, because I actually did not prepare the current events, which I meant to, and by the way, are you seeing me again?
Yeah, I see you. Yeah, you look good
Okay.
too.
Um, I meant to take all of 5 minutes to prepare a couple current event questions, and I didn't. I forgot, and but I wanted to do something different anyway, and go in
Oh,
entertainment, kind of like current events, but the entertainment.
okay.
Yeah. So a couple easy questions for you. What's your favorite comedy of all time, or recent,
Oh boy.
whatever?
Favorite comedy of all time. That's really a very difficult one, but I'm going to go with have you seen Idiocracy?
Oh yeah, yeah. I would never call it my favorite because it was so stupid, but at the same time, it made its point. It really
That was
made its
what I
point.
thought was the big deal is that it was funny to me and
Yeah.
it kind of made me mad. But it
Yeah,
was
that's the thing.
it's a spoof on what's happening today, and I thought they did a
The
really
dumbing
clever
down
job of it.
culture. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and everywhere I look, I see signs of idiocracy all around me. But
Oh
I'm
yes.
curious about what yours is.
Oh, mine are stupid, to tell you the truth, but they come right to my head. One is, and I got to tell you, I saw it back in college when I was home. I used to wait tables. I was with a couple guys late at night after we got high and watched Funny Farm with Chevy Chase.
Oh,
And
I don't
nobody's
think I ever
heard of
saw
it.
that.
I
Yeah.
thought it was the funniest damn thing ever because it was all about a situation where Chevy Chase and his wife, his Norman Rockwell-esque family, move out to this picturesque place that in the middle of nowhere, and I forget the name of it, like Rosebud, I think it was. And
Okay.
it turns out to be a bunch of really dysfunctional people. It looked like a Norman Rockwell setting, but really dysfunctional. And they were like, we got to get out of here. And so they're trying to do everything they can to sell their house to some other suspects, And I thought the whole situation was hysterical, but I'm sure the situation had something to do with it as well. But another one, just because it's so damn goofy. And again, I saw this for the first time in our apartment, Silver Meadows, on a Sunday morning. You were not in there.
I was probably asleep.
No, you were not there. I don't know where you were. The Three Amigos. And I thought that was freaking hysterical. And I've seen it like 7 or 8 times since, and I still think it's hysterical.
Really? Because I can't get past it. I see the previews to that movie, and I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. I don't want it.
Well, kind of.
But I have to say this, Barry. Hold on a second, because
Yeah.
I remember Seinfeld is one of my favorite one of it's my favorite sitcom. I've watched every episode probably about 20 times. I actually know the words to many of the episodes. I've watched it too many times. I find that I can create philosophy from their episodes and things like that. But I remember I would not watch that show for the first couple of years because of the theme song. It was stupid. And I'm like, that's a stupid show.
The Seinfeld?
Yeah, that's stupid. Yeah, I was like, I can't watch this. And it turned out it was my favorite show.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
There you go. You can't judge a book by its cover, apparently.
Your brother and I and Scott, your brother Scott is definitely one of the funniest people I know personally. And I've been trying to get him to do some stand-up out there. What the hell, man? He's in LA. You can do an open mic night for 10, 15 minutes, almost any time. We've had that conversation. He and I had that conversation recently. But anyways, he
told me.
Oh, good. It was a great conversation, though. We were talking about Seinfeld and Kramer. That iconic character. And I said, we agreed that Kramer could not have existed without Don Knotts and his, what was his character on Andy Griffith?
Barney Fife.
Yes.
One of my favorites.
I just think that was such an original take of such an extremely goofy character that I think that had to very much inspire Kramer.
I think that's a good take. I really like that. And I love Barney Fife.
Oh yeah, to say the least. But another show, comedy, I was so impressed with right out of the gate. It was like even Seinfeld took a year to get its feet underneath of them,
It did. Yep,
but All in the Family, dude. Carol O'Connor and what's her name? Stapleton. Maureen Stapleton.
Gene Stapleton. Yep.
They came out of the gate with those characters nailed. And those were some serious characters, man. I think that's impressive. Impressive.
We watched that show every week without fail. And when you really think about that show and what they said, can you imagine a show like that coming on TV today?
No.
I mean, they were the most politically correct episodes I've ever seen in my life. And they were fantastic.
Well, they were, but when's the last time you've seen an episode?
Because it's been a long time. The comedy was good for the time, but things have changed.
We should understand that. But yeah, I will say it's probably been about 5 years since I've seen an episode. But when I saw it even 5 years ago, I absolutely cringed with the way he talked to his wife. Now it was really funny because it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't meant to be taken seriously. If you know that. You can but to hear him call her a dingbat constantly, I literally was cringing inside. But that's how much times have changed,
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and here's another one. My buddy out here, Dan the Fireman, is a big Rat Pack fan. that reason, I wanted to, that, what Ocean's 11 movie was that the
Yes,
original?
I like that movie. Yes.
I never saw the newer one, but because he was such a Rat Pack fan, I saw in a TV guide or something some years ago that the original one with the Rat Pack was on TV. And so I started watching that. And yeah, man, the way times changed because, oh my God, the way they treated women in that movie was terrible. But at
I
the time,
never
it
saw
was
the
cool.
original.
They were cool. Go get that
Well,
movie,
yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. Times have changed, that's for
Yes.
sure. I mean, if those guys were around today, there'd
Yeah.
be mobs outside of their show halls, and it would be pandemonium.
Absolutely, without question. So along these lines, I just want to say, do you have a Netflix or an Amazon Prime recommendation of any kind? Have you been watching anything recently that you're just like, damn, this is good? Because there's some
Well,
quality
you
programs
know,
there.
yeah, I'm really bad at keeping up with newer movies. However,
I am.
I just saw a movie I've seen several times just the other day, and it was Jerry Maguire. And what a great movie that is.
I hadn't
And what
seen that
my
since it came out.
I have goosebumps right now because it's such a positive and
Really?
uplifting type of a movie, and really, as our show over 50 starting over, the show epitomizes this whole thing because what happens is he's been very successful in his business, and suddenly the politics of his business completely change. He's good, but the politics change, and he's out, and he doesn't have a job, and he gets fired. So he starts up his own business,
Oh,
and he
that's
goes
right.
through
Yeah.
all of these different struggles, and he keeps remembering his old mentor when he first started in the business. And that's my favorite part of the movie is this guy, kind of a frumpy kind of guy, and he's sitting behind his desk, and he's giving wisdom to Jerry Maguire, and I just the wisdom that he gives is so great. He starts, this business is all about relationships, and it just little clips like that. But at the
Mhm.
very end of the movie, he finally wins in the end, and he's successful in business, and he gets the girl, and then the mentor comes on and he says, in the end, I love my wife, I love my life, and I wish
Oh,
you the same. And
wow.
that's how the movie ends. And it's like when
Wow.
you boil life all down, it's not about climbing the corporate ladder. It's not about, what you did at work and how successful it
Yeah.
is. It's about your life and your loved ones and
Yeah.
love. So we have to put this all into perspective. It's
Yeah.
I don't live to work. I work to live.
Oh,
The
that's so
real
true.
living is with your family and the ones
As
you
we
love. And I can truly say to you, Barry, that I love my life and I love my wife, and I wish you the same.
Oh, that is very touching. I love that line. We are coming up on 58 minutes. I know you're gonna be like, what?
I know.
Yeah.
What a
I
great
wanted
place to end up, though.
it is. I wanted to end with this one. Your story about McGuire. Is it Johnny McGuire? Toby McGuire? Oh, Toby McGuire.
Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire. Yeah,
Yeah.
Toby Maguire was Spider-Man. Um, it reminds me of a terrific movie. I know I was talking about Netflix recommendations or whatever. I don't know what it would be on at this moment. It's pretty old. The Kid with Bruce
Hmm.
Willis. It's
Ah,
the essence. Oh, the message in it is just it will. Oh, you'll cry like a baby through it as you start to see it unfold. First, you'll laugh your ass off
really?
through the
Yeah.
first half. The message that you come away. Okay, Bruce Willis is this very successful personal brand manager in LA. And he's even got a tick because he's so uptight and he talks like really down to his clients and everything. And it's really
Right.
funny. I mean, it's really funny.
I
Um,
love
but
Bruce
it's
Willis.
a Walt Disney movie, like the
Oh,
old Walt Disney movies, where it does have a message. He runs into this kid mysteriously who doesn't know where he lives. He's kind of lost, and Bruce Willis is like, oh, just so irritated with this kid. And it turns out that it is actually him from whether it's another dimension or
Oh,
whatever, a younger version of him.
that's
And
hilarious.
so he is on this journey where he's unpacking all the things that he packed away of his old life growing up, and that made it such a cold heart
Right.
and everything.
Yeah.
And so he and the kid heal. And then this mysterious plane keeps flying over. I'm kind of actually giving it away now, but that ends up being like the 75-year-old version of him, who is
wow.
always looking out, kind of prompting the middle-aged version of Bruce Willis to do something. And so he it's a redemption. It's the
What
main
a
part of
great
this
movie.
It is,
Concept
man.
is awesome.
Oh my God, the concept is awesome. The main point of the movie is it's never too late. All right. Just because you're middle-aged, you can change the way what you're doing over 50, starting over. Find your true passion, find your heart, heal your past, and live for that greater you. That's a Buddhist concept. There is the what's the higher self, and
I see.
get in touch with that. And it's kind of like, well, if your father missed in some places for you, you do have this higher self, which is more identified with God and can help guide you. Look to it.
I can relate to this.
And it's about you
and
with
I would like
past
it's called The
selves.
Kid. I'd love to
The
see
Kid.
that.
Yeah, man. Highly recommend it. And I would watch it again in a minute if I could find it somewhere. Yeah. All right. With that, we're
recommendation.
an hour and 1 minute in. So call it a day.
Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, can't wait either. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you have any comments whatsoever, we are currently only on our YouTube channel, but by next week, because I want to get a few of these under our belts before I can upload them, we should be on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. But for right now, yes, if you can leave any comments with the YouTube videos, we would like to address them. We'd like to take questions as well.
And make sure you subscribe and that you like it too.
Yeah. Thanks a bunch.
And pass the link along to your friends too.
Yes, please do. All right. Thanks a bunch, Merle. I'll talk to you next week.
Got it. You got it.